Hello, welcome to another episode of the Becoming You podcast. I am in India as we record this podcast episode. I'm so excited to you guys. I don't know why being in a different country makes me tickled about this, but there you go. So if you're watching this on video, listening to it in your car or your walk, just know that your spirit is here in India as I'm talking to you. So today's episode is really focused on why consequences should be your very last resort when it comes to correcting or changing your children's behavior. And this topic came up because I was having a consultation call with a potential client. And she asked me towards the end of the call, so because she talked a lot about consequences with her child and how they weren't working. And she said, Visa, if you're telling me that consequences, are not that effective for my child, then what should I do? And I thought, what a perfect question to cover on the podcast. So first, I want to dive deep into my own history with handing out consequences and then talking to you guys about why I am now changing my perspective on why they're not that effective. And I'm not saying they're never effective, but like the underbelly of handing out consequences. And then what are some other tactics or strategies that you can use instead of consequences? Because we all want to correct or change our children's behavior and have them realize that, hey, when I act a certain way, there are repercussions to how I act and how I talk, and it impacts the world. Like you want them to realize that what they do has an impact, but there are other ways to do it instead of consequences. So let's start. So I used to be a big proponent of consequences, right? My child doesn't listen, I take away screen time. They throw a toy, they don't get that toy back. They don't use their inside voice after I've asked them multiple times. They lose, I don't know, something that's of value or very important to them. It could be that they lost a play date or their behavior throughout the day has been disrespectful, like just not very kind. They've been mean to their brother, whatever it might be. And, I might say things like, well, your behavior tells me today that you're in no shape or form to go to your friend's birthday party. So I might threaten him with that, etc. So all of that used to work until my youngest was about 5 when he couldn't, he was physically manageable, right? But after a certain age, like you can't physically manage them. And so when I say manage them, like when they're kicking and screaming, you can take them away from the situation. You can hold them so that they're safe. They're not hurting anybody else, right? But after a certain age, they just outgrow where you're safely able to do that. So I started realizing around that time, my youngest was 5, that consequences actually tended to make things worse. And even though I tried really hard on not to do that, because I knew it set him off even more, I sometimes felt helpless and powerless. And the only way to get him to listen would be to threaten him with consequences. And I would always follow through, which then made it even worse, right? For him, not as a parent instilling good behavior. One of the things with consequences that if you're going to threaten something with your child, if you say, I'm going to do this, if you don't act this way, and you give them multiple reminders and you're giving them countdowns or whatever, right? Like after the third time I ask you, this is what's going to happen. If you have that rule in place, it is of the utmost importance that you follow through so that your child knows that you are the leader in the household and that they are not in control and don't have the power. And as much as they fight to want power and control, they ultimately, it's like they don't want it. They want to be led, right? Children. So I realized that handing out consequences just was not healthy or effective in our household anymore. And so I started looking for other strategies. So let's then dive into why should consequences be the last resort? What are the downsides of consequences? We all know what the upside is, right? It gives us immediate response, immediate reaction. It immediately corrects their behavior. Whatever it is that they're doing, it stops them in their tracks and it helps us feel more in control. So we love consequences for that reason. But here are all the downsides to that. It often leaves your child feeling ashamed and really angry and disconnecting from you when often the behavior that you're trying to correct, the discipline that you're trying to instill is often a cry for connection and attention, right? It's if they are interrupting you constantly while you're working, right? That is a cry for please see me, please play with me, please connect with me. If um, they are withdrawn in their rooms with their screens all the time and you're having a hard time getting them away from their screen time. Well, they're on their screen time because one, they're numbing themselves. And two, maybe they're playing with their friends. And that is actually another cry for a connection. And because there is no connection, I'm not saying there's no, because they're craving for a connection with the humans at home, if they're not getting as much of it as they would like, then they look to connect in other ways. And that might be through the screen where they felt seen, where they feel in control, where they feel in power, right? So when we give out consequences, it actually leaves them feeling more alienated, ashamed, because we are passively sending the message that you are bad for having behaved that way. And because you're bad, that's why you're losing all of these things, right? Imagine even like if you've ever been let go at a job or made to feel redundant, or you've been put on a performance plan, or you didn't get a job interview, right? Like all of those things, you internalize that, even though it does not mean that you are bad, you summarize that to be, I'm not good enough. That's why I did not get that job, right? The consequence of you not working hard enough. That's how you internalize it, even though that's not what it means. It just means like you didn't have your best day on the job interview. It just means that you've been having a hard time with your health. So you maybe haven't been able to focus at your job as much as you used to. It means that you became a new mom and work isn't your primary focus as it used to be anymore, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But we internalize that and we feel so much shame and we feel so angry at the employer for letting us go without knowing or taking the time to help us in some way, right? So we feel all these feelings. So when we hand out consequences to our child, it's actually more direct than a job related situation. It's the parent directly telling the child, you didn't act in a way that I needed you to act. So you're going to lose all this stuff. And so the child then internalizes that as I am a terrible person. Something is deeply wrong with me and I can't seem to follow some orders, right? And they feel even worse because at their core, they want to please us, right? So when we are displeased with them and we show them that for consequences, they feel such deep shame and regret. Okay, so that's number one. So it actually leads to more disconnection, right? So number two, after a certain age or with some specific type of children, consequences just are not effective. It makes their behavior worse, like it did with my son, and amplifies the unwanted behavior even more. It escalates the behavior. So you might have a child or children where consequences just don't seem to be working and they seem to be worthless, and you might be feeling helpless at this point. And that's because some kids just have that capacity to like challenge you on your consequences, or they put up this front where they pretend to not care about the things that you're taking away because they are feeling vulnerable in the moment that they're acting up, right? They are scared, which is why they're acting up in the first place, right? The acting up comes from a need not being met. Like, I'm not getting enough of you. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I'm not getting what I want. I feel out of control. I feel powerless. I don't feel love, right? All of those, some of those needs or all of those needs are not being met in big and small ways. That is why they're acting up. So, which then, when you punish them or you instill consequences, it leads to them feeling even more shame, right? Which then means they're feeling even more vulnerable. So they're already feeling vulnerable. You hand them a consequence, then they feel even more vulnerable. So some children, when they feel that vulnerable, they feel even more out of control, which then means the unwanted behavior that we are trying to correct in the first place becomes amplified because that's how the power struggle plays out. oh, don't you dare make me feel more vulnerable or scared. I don't want to explore that part of me. It feels like death. So let me act out and try to scare you so that I don't have to feel these feelings of vulnerability. Okay. So that's number two. Number three, consequences are often an unfair power play that we have over our children. And we should wield it as little as possible. If you think about it, our children actually have very little control of power in their life. A lot of what they need to do from day to day is dictated by us and all the grown-ups in their life. We all think we know more than them. Um, like they just little people trying to make sense of the world, right? They're just like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're going through so many things for the first time. They're learning about so many things in life for the first time. Some of them really painful, right? And as an adult, they really look up to us. We are their safety. We are their lifeline. And when their lifeline steps in and says, you don't get that, and I have the power to take that away, imagine how scary that can be. Imagine if you are a single working spouse in your family, right? It's either you or your like partner, whoever works, right? And you rely on that single person for your entire life to put a roof over your head, for the food, for all the vacations you take, the car you drive, the gas you put in, the food you buy, etc. Right? And you've been having some trouble in your marriage. You guys are just not communicating well. You rub each other the wrong way. And one day, like you like do something out of spite, right? To get your spouse's attention, or your spouse does something out of spite to get your attention. They didn't mean to. They feel really bad about the way they've acted, right? And then one of you, whoever the earning person is, whoever has more financial power in the relationship, threatens to cut you off, or you threaten to cut them off. How do you think that's going to make them feel, right? They are your lifeline. Now you are their lifeline. And you would never do that to somebody you love and say, well, if you don't change, like I'm going to cut off like this. Yes, taking an iPad away isn't that big of a deal in your eyes because they still have shelter and food and all that, your children, right? But to them, that's how it feels because you are threatening to take away something that is of utmost importance to them. So you've got to see it through their eyes and see how consequences feel, right? Because you're their lifeline. And if the thing that provides their lifeline threatens to take something away that's really important to them, what the heck else can you take away from them? So this is why consequences, I feel, wheels and a disadvantage. Like you have an incredible amount of power over your child's life. And we should wield that responsibility really, really careful, right? It's like what they say about heroes. With great power comes great responsibility. I believe that's a Spider-Man quote, right, from the movie. And you have great power in your child's life, and you have got to use that with incredible responsibility. And number four, in case you're watching this on video and I'm looking down, I'm looking at my laptop and my notes. And I came across this TikTok video a while back, and it like blew my mind about consequences, especially like hitting and taking away things that are completely unrelated to the behavior that your child, the unwanted behavior that your child is exhibiting. And that is hitting or other punitive consequences, punitive meaning punishments, right? You're depriving them of something, is a resonant of what they used to do or what they still do in prisons and what they used to do with slaves, right? Colonialism. Wherever there was colonialism, you would be taken, you'd have your power taken away. You'd be stripped of your privileges, right? If you did not behave in the way that you are asked to behave without question. That's what happens in prisons. You go into prison and you get stripped of your power and privileges. Okay. It's resonant of that. So stripping away consequences and privileges from not stripping away, implementing consequences that strips away privileges and makes them feel powerless is resonant of what, colonial power used to do and what prisons still to this day do. We don't want that kind of action in our loving, safe homes. Now, I want to put a caveat to this and say, of course, to every situation, there is context. So I'm talking about consequences in general, but I'm not saying that consequences are not effective. We just have to use them with intention and carefully and make sure that we're not using it out of fear and our like loss of power and control in how to discipline our kids, right? And how to manage behavior. Are you using it for disciplining? Are you using it because you're desperate and you feel like you're losing control of your kids? Are you using it from a fearful place? Or are you using it with love and intention to really help with their behavior? Okay. And I'm going to give you a few tips now, what to do instead. And when you are using consequences, how to do that in a way that I feel is more kind and loving. So what you should do instead, well, first of all, number one, make sure it's your very last resort. Like if you've tried everything else that I'm going to share with you and nothing's working, then absolutely use it as your last resort. And I'll give you an example just from last night, okay, in my own personal life. Number two, before we hand out consequences, make sure that you are connecting every single day in small moments and big moments with your child. Fill up that connection bucket so much that when you do ask them to correct some unwanted behavior, that it's coming from a place of, I'm doing this to get your attention. Instead, it's coming from, I'm having a hard time transitioning. I'm having a hard time turning off my screen time, right? This is really hard. If you get it like 50, 60% of the time, it's wonderful, right? No one's looking for perfection here, but just make sure that you fill up your connection bucket with your child every day. And that can be as simple as when you wake them up in the morning, like depending on your child and their personality, right? Like oftentimes we'll come into the room, turn on the light, pull back the shades or the drapes and be like, good morning, time to wake up. And then we're busy, right? Trying to start the day, trying to get them to camp if it's summer or if it's school time, like trying to get them to brush their teeth, put on their clothes. We're like, rush, rush, rush. We are in an adult time. You're on my clock. Like, let's go, right? And like, I know my kids love connecting in the morning and they're like sleepy eyed, they're warm and cozy in their beds, using a gentle voice to wake them up so that it might mean that you wake up 10 minutes early so that you can spend that time with them, snuggling with them and using a caressing voice and, just talking about what does their day look like, etc. Now, this might feel like, oh my gosh, this is so over the top, but this is a really simple way to connect with your kids to help start their mornings off slow with your presence, right? And then another way to connect could be when they talk to you, you get down to their level and look into their eyes instead of being distracted, chopping vegetables or rushing to a meeting. Now, I'm not saying like you don't want to do that, but we just forget to do that. So make sure that you find all the ways to connect with your children as much as possible. And when you're connecting, let's make sure that it's not criticizing, right? You can often think, oh, I'm spending time with them, but a lot of times you might be correcting them on their behavior, on their homework, on how maybe they're not giving their full effort in their activities, or they didn't do their chores as well as you would have liked it to, or they didn't get it done on time, right? Like all of this can seemingly feel small to you, but it is big to your child because connecting is really about you seeing them for who they are instead of seeing them for who they're not. Number three, work on your patience and calmness first and ensure that you're not jumping to conclusions. So your mindset while you're before you hand out consequences was really important. Like oftentimes when you're busy and you've had a rough day or stressed and you feel overwhelmed and your child who's not done the chore that you asked them to do, we often jump to the worst conclusion, which is, man, they just not bothered, right? Like they just can't even do a simple task while I'm carrying the heavy load of doing so much in the house. I do everything on my own, right? Yes, all of that is valid and true for you. You are carrying a lot. It does feel overwhelming and stressful, but is it fair to put that everything on your child in that moment, right? And go straight to, this is the third time I've asked you to empty the dishwasher. Like, that's it. You lose screen time today, right? Because you've already jumped 10 steps ahead and assumed that they don't care, that it's not important, that you're already resentful, right? You're not giving your child the benefit of the doubt. I'm not asking you to do the dishwasher by yourself, because then that adds to your burden and resentment. That is not what we want here. What we need is for you to take a deep breath and put it into perspective. I've asked them 3 times. Obviously, something isn't working here. There's a breakdown in communication. I need to think about, how can I get this through to my child so that they understand the need, that they need to help me out. So it could be as going over as, if they're still on their screen, standing in between the screen and them, being like, and looking into their eyes and using a calm voice and saying, I've asked you to clean that dishwasher. The sink is full and I cannot load that dishwasher unless you empty it out. And it's really important that you do it right now for me, please. Right? And you stand there, right? So that they can't see their screen. Yes. Is that annoying? Absolutely 100%. Are they going to be unhappy with you? 100%. Are they going to be upset with you? Yes. Are they allowed to be upset with you? Yes. Let them be upset with you, which leads me to number 4, right? Don't expect them to be happy about all the things that you're asking them to do or change. They're allowed to be upset and be all grumbly and disgruntled with you. A lot of parents expect their kids to be happy about what they've been asked to do, to be grateful all the time about all the things that they had in their life. You've got to let that go, right? Be ready for some attitude. Let it go. If they're getting the chore done and they're really unhappy with you and they're making it clear, take a deep breath and be like, well, at least they're getting it done. You see how the response is very different, right? You are not unburdening your exhaustion, your resentment, how burdened and overwhelmed you feel on them, as though it is their fault. Because due to a lack of boundaries for you, you've taken on too much and you don't know how to say no. You don't know how to get help and support, right? Might be really hard to hear these things. But that is not your child's responsibility. All right, number 5, you validate their emotion. You validate their emotion, which is, yeah, you're allowed to be upset that I just interrupted you in the middle of your computer game. You have every right to be mad at me, and that's okay. But I still need you to go empty the dishwasher. Yeah, it's really hard to transition from screen time. I can understand that you're really sad. You're having a lot of fun. You did not want that fun to be interrupted. Right? So really validate their emotions. And then number 6, are you close to them or yelling at them from across the room to do something? Put your toys away, right? Or are you up close to them saying, yeah, we've not turned off screen time. It's time to put the toys away. And are you setting an example by picking out 1 or 2 toys and showing them where it goes and really directing their behavior? I made this mistake of me often yelling out to my child from afar, from across the room, being like, okay, it's time to turn it off. And they're like, yeah, in one ear and out the other, which then annoys me. So I have to get close to them, not yell, right, from across the room, and use a normal inside voice to let them know I'm really serious about it, dude. I'm right here next to you. Let me have the iPad. They're having a hard time transitioning. It is exhausting in the beginning, okay, when you start to do these things. Make sure that you're not explaining things in the heat of the moment when you're directing behavior. Stick to the facts, which is, let's turn off screens. Let's put away toys. It's not, I reminded you, that after 30 minutes, we always, clean up. Like, why can't you understand this? We've done this a million times. Why do you always complain? Right? 1, you're invalidating their emotions. 2, like, they're already dysregulated. You talking so much is not helping. And 3, you're giving them explanation as though you should understand this when they really don't. They're just really upset. So make sure that you're not offering a lot of explanations as to why they should be upset, because then that just makes them even more dysregulated because they feel like a dum dum for not like getting it. Okay. So do not explain in the heat of the moment. Number 8, after they calm down, speak to them about their behavior. Okay. Do not ask them to not only correct their behavior, but also then tell them why they shouldn't act that way. So only have that conversation after they have calmed down and they're in a good place to really listen and have a conversation about it. They feel safe. All right. Number 9, practice any solutions you have outside of the moment. So when you're talking to them, going to the previous one about number 8, hey, like I see that it's really hard for you to transition out of screen time, right? What are some can you help me brainstorm some ideas on how we can make that easier for you? Okay. So get them involved in coming up with ideas so that we don't have to go to the consequences part. And then number 9 is practice whatever it is that you have a plan when they're not dysregulated. So it's like role play. All right. And then finally, number 10, if you are going to implement consequences, make sure that they are natural consequences that are appropriate for the situation and the environment and whatever it is that happened. Make sure it is proportionate and fair. So let me talk about, I told you guys I was going to give you an example of how I went straight to consequences yesterday. As you know, I didn't have time. And what happened was I was going to be on a client call. In fact, I had already started the client coaching call. And as we are traveling in India, my husband has not joined us yet. So I'm with my kids on my own in my parents' house. And I'd already started this coaching call. And my son was really upset that I wasn't spending that time with him. So one, that tells me I did not connect with him enough that day. He did not get enough stimulation, which he was bored. And he was looking to me to entertain him and not be away from him. And 3, he was missing his dad. He was probably feeling lonely. So again, not enough connection time with his loved ones, right? And he wanted me, and he could not have me. And he would not leave the room. And my client was on the call, time was ticking, and I tried to talk to him, appeal to him, but I could tell he was getting more and more dysregulated. He was not getting out of the room. And I had to resort to, if you don't leave, you will lose your iPad, which is his most prized possession, right? And so he left and he was super upset and he slammed the door on the way out. And I knew that my response was not appropriate and it was unfair to him. So even though I'm a parenting coach and I'm making this episode about not using consequences, I also want to empathize with you. I too am a parent. I too am a human and I make mistakes. So yesterday was not my greatest parenting moment, but you know what? I gave myself grace. I forgave myself and I apologized to my son after for my behavior. So you can always repair. I just don't hand out as many consequences anymore. So doing this one time as a quick last resort was okay for me. But if I was handing them out all the time, we would have had meltdown central yesterday. All right. So that's the example I wanted to give you. And then as far as natural consequences go, as I said, if they didn't put away their toys, even though you've asked them a million times and they refuse to do it, it could be, all right, since you're having a hard time putting away, that must mean that we have way too many toys. Like, which 3 would you like to give away? Well, we don't have as many toys to put away, right? Like, that makes total sense as a consequence. But before we take stuff away, let's see whether they can be of value to the family. So it could be you had a hard time cleaning up your toys today. So today you're going to help me vacuum the house in addition to cleaning up your toys. Right. So now they are becoming a valuable contributing member of the family to make up for the fact that they did not want to clean up. Or maybe they just hate cleaning up their toys and they want to clean up somewhere else instead. Maybe they like to help with the dusting. Maybe they like to help with the vacuuming. Is this going to be done to your standards? No. Is it going to add extra work to you? Absolutely yes. But it teaches them that if I can't help out in this way, it's going to have to come out of elsewhere. Okay. So I talked a little bit about how to validate your child's emotions. And I want to remind you guys that I have made an entire document, 2-page document on how to validate your child the right way. A lot of people struggle to do this correctly. And so I think it's like a 12-step process, step by step. And I break it down and I give you sample sentences on how to do this. If you want to grab your hands on that document, I recommend that you write a review for this podcast. So if you're listening to this or you're watching this already makes it so easy for you. I'm afraid this is only available on Apple devices, on Apple phones. So go to the podcast link, scroll down past like the most recent 5 episodes. I think it lists under the podcast, Apple podcast listing. And then you will see star ratings. So you click on see all, and then right at the top of that next page, click on write a review. Okay. And once you've written that review, take a screenshot of your review before posting it, send it to me via Instagram DMs or Facebook Messenger if you're connected with me on Facebook, or reply back to one of my emails that will land in your inbox with the link to the podcast episode, right? Just find a way to send the screenshot to me, either through Instagram DM, Facebook Messenger, or my email, which is lisa@lisalaxi.com. And then if you just send me that proof of review that you've written it, you will get that in the email right away. We'll get how to validate my child PDF document for free as a thank you for taking 1 or 2 minutes out of your day to write a review for my podcast. I love you guys so much. I'll see you on the next episode.